welcome Bryan Harvey to British Water's second thought leadership interview. It's really great to have you because you've got so much international experience working on a large number and variety of global water projects. You're highly experienced in the UK market and overseas, and it's really good just to have your input and your thought leadership really on some of the key issues that are being faced in not only in the UK water industry but in the global industry. So welcome and thank you very much.
Thanks very much for having me. Thank you.
It's a pleasure. Now, I'd like to start off with Jacob's vision. And I was looking at your website, and part of your vision is we're creating solutions to deliver a more connected, sustainable world. Now, what does a more connected, sustainable world look like for Jacobs?
Yeah, so I think from my perspective, you break that statement down into two parts. There's the connected piece and the sustainable world piece. So connected to me means connecting communities, connecting clients, connecting people, connecting solutions really and providing those solutions that ultimately drive that better world we're all seeking. You know, a much more efficient world, a much more pleasant world, but very much using the solutions that are very much offered by Jacobs in that solutioneering piece. Second, then, is that sustainable world, and to drive that sustainability with that connection in mind, we've got to start thinking differently. And very much within Jacobs, we believe there is a better way to some of the solutions that have been provided of old, and rightly so, because now we're in a world with different technologies, different challenges in terms of climate change, population growth, the geopolitics of the world and the like. So for me, it means really unlocking the full potential of a company with the skills of Jacobs, but in solving some of the world's great and some of the clients' greatest challenges that currently exist.
Great.
So that's what the vision means to me.
Great. Okay. Now that naturally leads on to my second question around sort of the global challenges. So what do you see are the sort of global challenges that we're addressing at the moment? Or facing, I should say. And
I think we probably I'll keep that probably initially within the water context, and can probably take that a bit wider as well. Water, one of those, probably one of the oldest industries there is in terms of providing drinking water that people can use. But the fact of the matter is the world's changing, and what you believe is the cause of that change is up to every individual there is. But the challenge is changing, and the climate's changing. Weather events are becoming much more extreme and more frequently. Sometimes dryness, sometimes excessive water, and our ability to deal with those changes and that climate change is being impacted by the number of people on this planet. So the amount of space we've got to deal with those challenges is reducing, particularly in the flood situation, but also in the water supply situation. There's a much higher demand now than there's ever been before. So inefficiencies we could tolerate of old, the less innovative solutions of old just don't have that space anymore. We've got to change, and we've got to respond to those new two challenges. Now, I don't think fundamentally the water supply challenge or the water supply techniques have changed that much actually over the last number of decades, but we certainly now we need to adopt a much higher level of flexibility in our solutions than we've ever had to use in the past. And I think that's the key for me, is that the challenges of today really do require a different mindset, which going back to those points of old, is sort of believing there's a better way. And if you did nothing else but create flexibility in that better way, then I think that for me would be a really powerful thing. But if I just take that wider thing now about the sort of those global challenges, and I think the World Economic Forum's risk report, really, I don't know if you read that, but every year it comes out. I have a quick flick through it, and you can probably summarize the risks of the World Economic Forum's risk report into 5 things. One is the around geopolitics, the environmental changes, obviously climate, economics, and so forth. But these are the challenges we've got to address now as a global community. It's not just the climate change and populations; it's that wider contextual challenge which affects infrastructure investment, it affects the solutions that we all strive to achieve.
Yeah, and this also sort of leads on to how sort of projects are implemented. So we're talking about sort of Project 13 and sort of best practice and how we can sort of take best practice in one area and then share it in another. And I just want you to sort of get your views on Project 13 and how you think that's been adopted in the UK market. Yeah,
the thing I really love about Project 13 is that it encouraged partnership, true partnership, and I think that needs to be right at the heart of the water community, because many of these challenges you can't solve them on their own now. You've got absolutely got to bring in the communities, the public sector, the private sector together to bring these solutions. So Project 13 is all about creating those enterprises, those partnerships, and I think where we've really bought into that partnership approach, and I think Anglian Water as one example has been a sort of leader in this area, where we've really bought into that partnership approach, we've really unlocked the efficiency benefits. We've really started to drive some very differential solutions, but bringing the best out of people, getting rid of some of the conflict, but putting all that conflict energy into driving some really challenging targets which everyone's aligned to achieve. So I see Project 13 in some instances is going really well, and I think the benefits to those clients and that entire supply partnership as being really powerful. But I think in some instances the clients really haven't adopted some of those elements now, which is interesting because we're seeing interest right from New Zealand to Australia and through into Canada in that same concept of how do you bring out the very best of the part of the commercial arrangements and incentivize those different parties to focus on the outcome solution, and so I'm a real fan of Project 13 and what it's trying to achieve.
Do you think people actually understand Project 13 enough and how it can impact on projects in a positive way? Yeah,
I think it's the hardest thing is it's a change from a simple scope delivery into an outcome-focused delivery. So it requires change on all parties' sides. So it requires a change in the procurement strategies of clients. It requires a change in the delivery strategies of suppliers, because we're all incentivized and all focused on the combined outcomes of the community and the customers we're serving.
Okay. So we're in the midst of changing times, as you know, with Brexit and the debate around legitimacy. And obviously, Ofwat, our regulator, is wanting water companies to do more with less. So how do you sort of see AMP7 shaping up?
Yeah, I wish I had a crystal ball. I could answer that with absolute clarity, but I'll keep it a little bit high. I think, no question, this AMP7 period is going to be one of change. And I think we've started to see some of that change already. There's change going on in some of the business case submissions through the various responses between Ofwat and those respective companies. I think there's going to be change of suppliers. So even if you just focus on that, back to the Project 13 example, if those suppliers are able to engage and partner in a Project 13 way, they'll gain traction in some areas. But I think that I always see the various AMP cycles as just a moment in time. The important thing is remember that after AMP7 comes AMP8, 9, 10 and so forth, and we've got some real long-term challenges to address in the UK, and I'm really hopeful that in AMP7 we start to address some of those challenges. And by that I mean very much the water resource challenges as outlined by the National Infrastructure Commission, the Environment Agency DEFRA in recent times. So there are some real challenges to be addressed there, and I hope that we start on that journey in AMP7 so that in a decade's time we've got a very much more resilient water supply system, and then hopefully a much more resilient wastewater system in the UK as well.
And part of that piece is innovation and how we can best harness innovation and bring that into the industry. And as part of that, the SMEs who often have lots of innovative ideas but don't know how to bring them into the industry or how to showcase them or how to get them tested. So I just wanted to know if you had any sort of thoughts on that.
Yeah. So my definition of innovation is when you connect an idea to a client's need or provide a client's solution. So an idea is just an idea until the client buys it. And I think that's the challenge we've got to address. How do we unlock those ideas that are undoubtedly out there in a way that can really bring them into a client solutioneering or even a customer service provision. So, and for me, I think we as an industry need to maybe just sort of step back and reflect a little bit. First, around how we encourage innovation through the innovation hubs. From my perspective, there seems a degree of either inconsistency or even competition at times between one innovation center versus another, one client's innovation program versus another, and I think we're just making it overly complex for ourselves. So we need to really there to draw partnership in that innovation. And I think the second thing is recognizing that we've got to do something different if we want to really respond to the challenges we're facing at the moment as an industry. So in that, we've got to really start thinking about how our procurement arrangements work for the SME, how we engage and reward that innovation, because all investment is expecting return on investment. All innovation investment expects that same thing. So how do we unlock that for them so that all that great intelligence of the UK SME community is really brought to the fore in bringing solutions to customers?
And how do you think Jacobs could potentially help in that space?
So we're I think, first of all, absolutely bought into Project 13 approach, which is very much the enterprise and looking there for the best solutions that are out there, because we're focused absolutely on the outcome. So I think that's a commitment number one. Commitment number two is actively looking to partner with those innovators that are out there. And like many others, we've got our innovation programs, but they're very, very much driven on focusing on client-driven solutions. So we're not encouraging the development of ideas. We're encouraging the solution. And for me, that's the most important distinction between the approaches, that we're very much trying to respond to what our clients are after. Now, I'm sure SMEs watching this are thinking, so what's that mean? Well, what it means is that we're always focused absolutely on that endpoint. If SMEs that have got a solution to a client problem could illustrate that problem, then that's a much easier discussion for us to have, rather than simply another great idea, because there are lots of great ideas out there.
True. And then what do you think about the sort of the global marketplace? I mean, who do you sort of think is leading the way in terms of, we've spoken a lot about Singapore and other places, and obviously there's best practice in the UK that can be taken overseas, but who would you say is sort of leading the way in terms of water resource management?
I'm always impressed by the Singapore story, and I think the thing that really impresses me is that foresight and that's been a journey really of 50 years, but it's one that's created flexibility, and it's realised that there are uncertainties, but how do we just take out the uncertainty in terms of that customer service or water supply service? So for me, that's really impressed. Some of the water companies in the UK are absolutely at the forefront of development as well. So particularly those that are thinking about increasing dual source supply and are responding to that flexibility challenge, because, like it or not, we're in the UK going to be facing a challenge of water, and the companies and the level of flexibility we have will determine how well we respond to that challenge of the future. I think beyond that, there are lots of pros and cons. Some public sector owned water companies, some private sector owned water companies. But the critical thing is long-term thinking. That's you can see examples of positive and negatives in everything we look at, but certainly the people that succeed, the countries that succeed, are the ones that have the longer-term thinking. Yeah,
that's very true. Very true. So, Bryan, do you have any thoughts on how AI and digitization can positively impact the water industry?
Yeah. And I'll probably start off answering that one by what is AI? Because it's one of those words which is used everywhere at the moment. And I think we just got to take that step back and think, what actually is it? And I think what it means to me is that move away from activities which in the past have been undertaken by humans into things which now are either digital, by computers, or probably in the older ways, it's even robots in a way. So it's things which are move from the human to something else. So within that context, therefore, what do we need AI to do? And I think it's those things which really we don't need a human being doing anymore. And for me, the opportunity of AI is that it unlocks the full potential of our industry and the human beings working in the water industry. So we can analyze much better now vast sums of data. We can predict when things start to go wrong, not wait for them to go wrong, just by monitoring electricity signals and resistance and things like that in pumps. So it offers phenomenal potential here for increased efficiency, increased or better maintenance, asset management. But I think for many, it will be an area which has one of concern. So how's this going to affect me? And I always see these things as real positive opportunities to unlock personal value, but also unlock the value we can deliver for the customer here. So I'm absolutely 100% behind the increase of digital solutions, the increased use of AI type solutions, but in the context of it allows us to really unlock our domain experience and delivery experience. And that for me is the critical thing. You've got to have all three mixed together. One in isolation really is not going to bring best value to the customer.
And you were mentioning earlier about Wasser Berlin and how they were using AI, which was quite interesting.
Yeah, absolutely. And there they've been collecting, if I remember rightly, about 20 years of data, CCTV data. And there they've been using that data to develop an AI system which can through that video start to identify where fractures in pipes are happening. So it's and very, very high levels of predictability as well. So really, really good. That's a really positive use of new technology to do something which I'm sure most people would find a bit tedious. So really great material there.
And it's all about really sort of delivering a better service to customers, which is very much about one of these sort of key Ofwat focus areas. And around that is the sort of value of water and how we as an industry can sort of get that message across to not only our sort of key stakeholders and partners, but also customers. How do they understand the value of water? Because I do feel sometimes that the water industry gets quite a bit of bad press, but actually there's lots of positives that are going on at the moment. So I just want to get your views on the sort of value of water and how we can best sort of, I suppose, change or get a better balance of that sort of perception.
And I think it is very much perception. I think phenomenal value is being delivered every day. And if you think of what would happen if it weren't for the water industry, there'd be millions of people in hospital every day with waterborne disease type challenges. And so I can't remember who said it now, but I certainly remember hearing from it may be one of the Singapore clients or the like, that really we should think of ourselves as a public health industry. And we are bringing phenomenal health through supply of fresh, clean drinking water and dealing with waste water every single day. We're bringing that value to the world community. So that's the value that's being created by our industry. But the challenge now is, how do you recognise that value? And easy for me to say I know, but I think a barrel load of water, which is roughly what we use, the equivalent of a barrel of oil, but a barrel of water is what we use every single day as about 150 litres of water every day to meet our water needs. And we're getting that for roughly £1, $1. It's very, very nominal expense in the overall scheme of cost of living at the moment, particularly here in the UK. So I personally think it's high value service, but we've got to start helping communities understand their part in really unlocking the value of water, because there's no way we can solve all of these challenges. And I think the NIC put it really, really nicely. It's a combination of dealing with leakage, better water management, so personal use of water, and also creating new water supply. And if we really want to unlock value, those are the three challenges we've got to address. And everyone's got a role to play in that.
And also there's sort of a piece around the sort of natural environment. So whatever we're doing, we're taking into consideration the natural environment. And that, again, is very much sort of key. So important. It's keeping that balance. And the more flexibility of resource we've got, the more balanced we can be in our response to challenges of the future. If we've only got one tap to turn, we can only turn that one tap. If we've got multiple taps to turn, as I think Singapore phrase it, then we've got much better ability to deal with all the demands on our water supply, from agriculture to the environment to people's drinking water and industrial use and so forth. Great. So, Bryan, what would you say is your call for action for the water industry?
I think the first point is really reinforcing that value point we've just been discussing. We've absolutely got to continue to push the value equation on the water agenda. And it's not just about the value of how much we drink today, but it's the value we create in how much we drink tomorrow, and that continuity, resilience of supply of tomorrow. So that's the first point. And now to do that, we've got to be thinking much longer term. I think there's been some phenomenal reports by NIC, Water UK, DEFRA and the Environment Agency and so forth. And these reports make it really clear that we've got to do something with a longer term horizon in order to address some of these challenges. And yet we're still focused on a really short term horizon when we're planning those responses. So we've got to open our eyes to those things. And I think that probably the last thing would be really unlocking the full potential of the technology that's there now, and not doing it in a way just to drive out cost, but so that we can unlock the full potential of the professionals in the water industry. And to do that, though, we've got to really break some of the legacy barriers, some of the legacy approaches that we're all too used to working in. So it goes back to almost the Jacobs vision here, that we've got to connect and provide that better sustainable solution for the long term. And the only way you do that is by believing there is a better way, which I firmly do.
Good. And so what do you think British Water could do?
I think it's sticking on that value point again. Not so much the value of water, but unlocking the value of the professional, unlocking the value of the industry. So it's by encouraging that change. We've got to drive out wasteful activity, which take up so much energy, and divert innovation, divert investment. So I think one of your excellent pieces are on the cost of a typical AMP cycle is just diverting too much money away from the things which really count on innovation, technology, and so forth. So one of the challenges we have in the water industry at the moment is that we've got an ageing workforce. There's a lack of diversity. We need to bring people through and get them trained so that all that sort of knowledge that could disappear in the next sort of 10 to 20 years is not lost. And we were talking earlier about STEM and the importance of STEM and getting people through engineering and getting them to think about the water industry and necessarily not other sort of engineering fields. So what's your thoughts on that? I think that's, for me, is one of the critical things that we as an industry have got to address. And we with Jacobs are really proud to be strong supporters of and have many STEM ambassadors across the UK. So that commitment to the next generation is absolutely there in my mind. But add to that then this need for change. And we've got to, as you rightly say, increase the diversity. But we've got to be much more inclusive of the way we address some of the challenges. And so combine STEM with, say, arts. And there seems to be a growing trend out there which have picked up recently in relation to STEAM. So the STEM plus the A in the middle. And that's really, really important, because I think if we're going to address some of the challenges of the future, we need to be much more inclusive of some of the new ways of thinking, things that we can learn from the natural environment, things that we can learn from the digital environment. And so therefore we've got to have a workforce which is ready to address all of those things. So STEM really, really important, but add to that as well. And for us really to get the best out of it, I think we've got to be even more inspirational in encouraging and talking about how we can include and get more from our industry, rather than always on the back foot, stepping back and responding to the challenges all the time.
Yeah.
And I think for me, that's the opportunity in the moment of now, is that we've got so much we should be proud of, that let's engage the new communities through the STEM programs and the like, but let's start talking more positively about all the great value that we're doing as an industry, because that, I think, will then start attracting everyone into what I've found is a really, really attractive and really exciting industry for the last 30 years or so.
And this sort of comes back onto the point about perception.
Yeah.
Because one of the sort of terms that came up recently at an event that we had, our annual lunch, and I love the phrase, is a citizen scientist.
Wow.
So you've got more sort of citizens sort of maybe, or people sort of buying maybe sensors and monitoring their own sort of water quality. And I suppose that sort of is coming up a bit more strongly in terms of sort of customer engagement and making sure customers are satisfied. So how do you sort of see how the sort of citizen scientist fits in the sort of collaborative piece, partnership piece?
Yeah. So I see that as a really positive thing. People, citizen scientists, and there's lots of other phrases out there we could use, but there's so much that basically means energy. People want to invest their own personal time in solving this particular challenge. So I think the challenge back now on the industry is, why can't we explain what the best thing they could do to help us all address some of the water challenges? So it's back to that NIC report again about water management, better management of our water resource. So let's provide people with the tool and the knowledge that they need to respond to that challenge of the NIC, and that will then help us all become a much more resilient UK water industry.
So that sort of fits in with the water resources management. You've got all these sort of regional clusters now, water resources southeast, water resources east, making sure we're bringing in sort of farming piece, industrial piece, the water companies, supply chain. As you said, collaboration and partnership is very, very important.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think for me, I'm really, really supportive of those water resource groupings. It's really nice to see that they're cross-water company boundaries, so they're not focused in the same way as as so many in the industry. But I think just one statistic that's I think been going around for a long time now is that if we don't keep the water flowing to London, as an example, and it would be the same with any other city, the cost of drought to the city is incredible.
Right.
It's a sort of a quantum that can pay for new reservoirs, new water supplies in just a short period of time. So how do we really recognise that that's the true value of water, is keeping our economy going? And I think it was a DEFRA report that said that it's in the order of £300 million a day. That's the cost of not having a water supply to London.
Right.
And that's a very big statistic and a very big number, and that going back to our value discussion earlier, that's the value equation of water. Is not having it, you certainly realise what the cost is. If you've got it every day, it's almost taken for granted.
Well, Bryan, thank you so much for being our second thought leader.
Pleasure.
You said a lot of things that have resonated with me, and things that I've been hearing from lots of different partners and stakeholders in the industry. And I think one of the things that really sort of impacted me was the value of water and how important it is for us to sort of change perceptions around that. And that's one of the things that as British Water we want to sort of help to partner with you and others to make sure that people do understand what the value of water actually is and what the benefits are of the water industry, to help sort of reshape that sort of discussion or help inform it so that there's a more sort of balanced perception in terms of what the water companies are doing, the supply chain and the other key stakeholders, so that it's not just a sort of negative perception, which sometimes I think the water industry has. So thank you very much.
Yeah, pleasure to be here. Thanks for having me.